I found an apartment that shouldn't exist. Something was waiting for me. Part 3. Chapter 18. Paul's Sister. I don't know how long I stood there, watching the shape. Seconds. A lifetime. My jaw clenched until it ached. My eyes burned from staying open too long, but I didn't dare blink. I couldn't. I knew if I did, even once, it would be closer. Or inside. The eyes lining the walls blinked again. Not all at once this time. They blinked in waves, forming a pattern, pushing me, guiding me, not toward the front door, but toward the one place I'd avoided since the beginning. The bedroom. The doorway loomed behind the shape, a black mouth and a house full of lungs. The shape didn't move as I approached. It didn't have to. It was an idea given density, a thought that never wanted to be named. As I stepped past it, the pressure in the air lessened slightly, like it had let me through. But not without a price. The blood from my ears had slowed. Instead, it had started to trickle upward. Against gravity. Floating toward the ceiling in tiny spirals before vanishing. The rules were breaking. Time was folding. I entered the bedroom. It was pitch black. I raised the flashlight. The beam was weak, pulsing like a dying heartbeat, but enough to show me one thing. She was there. Paul's sister. Emily. Sitting on the edge of the bed. Hands folded neatly in her lap. Pale. Still. Eyes wide open, completely white. No iris. No pupil. Just soft, milky spheres that shimmered faintly like moonlight on dirty porcelain. Her lips moved slowly. Constantly. Whispers spilled from her in a soft, steady stream. Not in English. Not any language I recognized. I stepped closer. Her mouth worked around the words like a record played in reverse. Then, without pausing, she said something that stopped me cold. "Dylan, I knew you'd come." The same cadence as the woman. But it was Emily's voice. Younger. Tired. Broken. She turned her head toward me, but not her eyes. They didn't focus. She was blind. But aware. "He brings you back each time," she murmured. "To see if you'll trade." "Emily," I said. "I'm here to take you out of here." She smiled faintly. "That's what you said last time." My heart twisted. "I've never." "Not you," she said. "Another you." He screamed when they pulled his tongue out. She pointed slowly toward the far corner of the room. I followed her hand. And there, in the shadows, I saw it. A shadow not connected to anything. It flickered. Shifted. Moved, slightly. Like a person standing still, but their outline couldn't hold still. It shook like bad reception. It pulsed. And it mirrored her. It was her shadow. But it moved before she did. When she lifted her hand again, the shadow raised hers a split second too early. Like it was controlling her. I stepped back. The shadow turned its head. It had no face. But I felt it lock onto me. Emily began rocking gently, the whispers speeding up. "If you take me, it follows. If I stay, it sleeps. If I speak, it wakes. If I sing." "Emily," I snapped. "Focus. How do I get you out?" She stopped. Completely still. Then, very softly, "You can't leave until you choose which of us stays." "What?" "That's the rule now. It changed when you broke the mirror. Now it needs balance." My throat tightened. "If we both try to leave, the loop resets," she said. "Everything starts again. You forget. I wait. He watches." She looked toward the wall, and now I could see. The wall was pulsing. A heartbeat. From inside the plaster. From him. The one behind the doors. Behind the shape. Behind the voice that never quite spoke. The room was getting colder now. Not freezing, empty. The kind of cold that comes before a storm, when even the birds go silent. Emily's shadow moved again. This time it didn't match her. It stood up. But she remained seated. It loomed over her. Then turned toward me. And it smiled. Even without a face, I felt it. It smiled in my bones. Chapter 19, Sacrifice. The shadow moved closer. Not fast. Not threatening. Just inevitable. Like gravity. Like guilt. Emily sat frozen on the bed, still whispering that reversed, looping litany. Her hands trembled slightly now, as if something was pulling at her, unthreading her from the inside out. I backed away toward the doorway, heart hammering, mind racing. There was no sound now, not from the walls, not from the eyes, not from the hallway. Everything had gone completely still. And yet the pressure was still there. Heavy. Waiting. That's when I saw it. The door. Not the front door. Not the one I came through. A new door. Set into the wall between the bedroom and the kitchenette. Plain. Wood. No handle. No frame. Just there. Like it had always been waiting for this moment. I approached it slowly. Tested it with my palm. It didn't budge. But I could feel it, warm. Beating. Like something on the other side had a pulse that matched my own. And I knew. Deep down. Instinctively. This door wasn't locked. It was waiting. But not for a key. For a cost. I turned to Emily. She didn't look up, but I could feel her voice behind her words. It only opens when you give it something real. What kind of something? I asked, already knowing the answer. A piece of yourself, she whispered. Something true. Something that won't come back. I dug into my coat, almost on reflex. My fingers wrapped around the silver watch in my inside pocket. Old. Scratched. Stopped at 3:42. It had belonged to my father. The last thing he gave me before his mind slipped for good. Before he started screaming at the shadows under the floorboards and begging me to stop going into the places. I'd worn it on every job since. I took it out, felt its familiar weight. My fingers hesitated. Memories flickered behind my eyes, the sound of his voice, the way he used to tap the face of the watch with a knuckle when he thought too long, the way he smelled like sawdust and old leather. This was the part of the story no one likes to talk about. Hauntings always want something. Most people think it's blood, or fear, or lives. But the real ones, the intelligent ones? They want memory. Meaning. Identity. I crouched and placed the watch on the floor in front of the door. The floor accepted it without sound. The wood seemed to ripple slightly, drinking in the offering like water through dry roots. I stood back. Nothing happened. Then, a whisper behind me. Not enough. I turned sharply. Emily still sat on the bed, still rocking slightly. But her voice had changed. She sounded like a child now. Like me, maybe, when I was young. You always think a thing is enough. But it wants the feeling. I closed my eyes. Reached into my wallet and pulled out the photo I kept tucked deep behind expired credit cards and fake IDs. A photo of her. The only woman I ever let close enough to see what I really was. We'd taken it under a cracked neon sign in New Orleans after a case that nearly burned us both alive. She was laughing. I was trying to smile, failing as usual. I hadn't seen her in 4 years. Not since I disappeared for 5 days on a job and came back too hollow to explain what I'd seen. I hadn't spoken her name since. My hands shook as I held the photo. I whispered it now. Nadine. The name hung in the air like smoke. I knelt, placed the photo beside the watch. And this time, the door exhaled. Not metaphorically. Physically. A hot gust of air rolled out from its edges, smelling of earth and ash and rain on forgotten concrete. The grain of the wood shimmered. But still, it didn't open. One more thing. I knew what it wanted. I didn't want to give it. The last thing. I reached into my coat one final time, deeper than before, past objects and pages and salt and silver. And I touched it. A slip of notepaper. Crumpled. Torn. The only thing I had from her. Not Nadine. My mother. A grocery list. I'd found it years ago in a book she used to read to me when I was sick, scary stories to tell in the dark. She'd written it on the back of an old receipt. It read, milk. Eggs. Don't forget flashlight batteries. Dill always uses them up playing Ghost Hunter. The last note circled twice. She died the next winter. I unfolded it now. The paper was soft with time. Her handwriting crooked but strong. I stared at it for a long moment. Then laid it gently on the floor. And whispered, "That's all of me." The door opened. Silently. Smoothly. The hinges didn't creak. There was no sound. Just a low, pulling wind and a sudden absence of everything. Behind the door? Darkness. And something waiting at the bottom of a long, spiraling staircase. Chapter 20. The Burning Room. The door opened wide with a breathless sigh, like something old and patient had been holding its lungs full for centuries and was finally ready to exhale. I stepped through. The floor behind me vanished. Not in flame. Not in sound. Just gone. The moment I crossed the threshold, the room behind me was no longer a room. It was a blank slate, a smear of shadow and smothered air. No light. No door. No way back. Ahead, the narrow staircase spiraled downward like a helix cut from bone. Each step was uneven, coated in a layer of ash and something else, something damp. The walls that enclosed the spiral weren't wood or stone but pages. Thousands of pages. Torn out journal entries. Photographs. Receipts. Grocery lists. All mine. Each one fused into the surface, fluttering slightly, whispering faintly as I passed, as though the staircase were made entirely of moments I'd forgotten, or traded away. I descended. The air grew colder with each step. But not the kind of cold that bites your skin. This cold didn't feel natural. It felt like absence. Like the temperature of places that were never meant to be touched. And then I smelled it. Smoke. But wrong. Sweet. Chemical. Thick, but not choking. The air burned like memory, like smelling a fire and remembering exactly what you lost in it. I emerged from the spiral into a room. At first, I thought it was the apartment again. The same layout. Same worn floorboards. Same crooked picture frame. But it wasn't. This one was melting. The walls wept black tar. The floor shifted under my feet, rippling like it was floating on something too hot to hold its shape. And fire, cold fire, licked the edges of the ceiling. It didn't spread like normal flames. It didn't devour. It rearranged. Wherever it touched, reality buckled. Furniture changed shape. Walls bled into each other. The windows stretched into vertical slits that blinked once and then vanished. I took a step forward. The floor pulsed. And then I saw it. A body in the corner. slumped, breathing. Barely. It was me. Not metaphorically. Not. Like me. Me. Face half burned. Chest rising and falling in shallow, ragged gasps. Eyes open but blind. The lips moved. I knelt beside him. I whispered, "Don't let it take the name." "What name?" I asked. He convulsed once. Spoke again. "The real one." He was gone before I could ask more. I looked up. The room was dissolving now. The cold fire spread across the ceiling and down the walls, folding reality like wet origami. Every surface warped, twisted into impossible angles. The edges of things detached from meaning. The couch turned inside out. The television grew a second screen. The door vanished again. And all the while, the fire burned. But it made no heat. Only memory. Memories rising into the air like smoke. Mine. I saw them flickering in the flames. My father standing at the end of a hallway, watch in hand, calling my name. Nadine smiled before I told her I'd be gone. Just one night. Emily, the real Emily, laughing in the back of a car window before she ever stepped foot in this place. My own face, reflected in a broken mirror, whispering, again, over and over. The apartment was collapsing in on itself, not crumbling, but consuming. The walls didn't fall. They peeled. Like dead skin sloughing off something waking up inside. I turned toward the far wall. One thing remained untouched by the fire. A door. Old. Wooden. No handle. Just a mark carved into the center. The spiral. The one from the journal. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I reached it just as the ceiling split open and a column of white flame, cold as frostbite, roared through the air behind me. I slammed my palm into the spiral. The door didn't open. It swallowed. Reality warped. I fell through it. And the last thing I saw as the burning room folded behind me was my own face in the fire. Smiling. Chapter 21. The core room. There was no sensation of falling. No wind. No gravity. Just the overwhelming pressure of being unwritten. For a moment, I didn't exist. Not in a poetic way, I mean literally. Like the space I occupied had no permission to remember me. No time. No mass. No Dylan. Then I landed. Hard. The air exploded back into my lungs with a wet gasp, and I collapsed to the floor, cold, damp, solid. The world around me was black. Not the absence of light. Not a shadowed room. This was something deeper. This was null. And yet, even in that perfect darkness, I could feel things watching me. Breathing with me. Waiting. I pulled myself up slowly. The floor beneath me was smooth, featureless. Not stone. Not wood. Just surface. Wide and endless. Then a light appeared. No switch. Just illumination, like thought made visible. A ring of overhead fluorescence hummed to life, bathing a circle around me in sterile white light. And there they were. Me. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Encircling the ring of light, standing in the dark just beyond the reach of it. Some were dressed like me. Some weren't. Some looked like I'd seen them yesterday in the mirror. Others were ruined. One version stood shirtless, covered in runes carved into his chest, each mark burned black and still bleeding. Another had no eyes, just long red gouges where sight used to be. He wept tar that evaporated into soundless screams. One was crouched in a fetal position, rocking violently, muttering words I couldn't hear over the hum of the lights. But most of them? Most of them stared. Silent. Still. Judging. Or maybe just recognizing. And then one moved. Fast. A version of me I didn't recognize, older, leaner, face sunken, jaw clenched in permanent fury. He stepped into the light without hesitation and launched at me, arms outstretched. He moved like he knew every part of me, because he did. I hit the ground hard, grunting as the wind was driven from my lungs. His hands were on my throat before I could react. His face was inches from mine, and his eyes, God, they weren't angry. They were relieved. Finally, he hissed. You're the one that gets out. His grip tightened. I struggled, reached for the flask, gone. The journal, gone. Everything I'd brought was stripped. You think you're here to escape? He spat. You're the exit. They made you into the door. I could barely breathe. My vision blurred at the edges. This place doesn't end, he growled. It evolves. And we're the blueprint. With a final burst of strength, I twisted hard to the left, broke his balance, and slammed my forehead into his nose. He reeled backward with a snarl, blood pouring from his face, and I rolled to my knees. The light above us flared. All the other versions stepped forward. Now I could see them fully. Each one was frozen in the moment they broke. One midway through screaming, mouth stretched open, eyes locked on something above. One sitting in a chair, arms bandaged, head tilted like he never figured out which version of reality to believe. One hanging upside down from the ceiling by his ankles, rope embedded in skin like it had grown there. One still burning. Not screaming. Just burning, like he was the wick, not the candle. This wasn't a room. This was a graveyard of cells. The entity didn't just keep people. It kept the versions it liked. The Dylan who fought too hard. The one who gave up. The one who couldn't save Emily. The one who traded names. The one who stayed. I stood slowly, catching my breath. The attacker, that older, ruined me, sat now at the edge of the circle, rocking slightly. Murmuring. He'll offer you the deal soon, he said. They all do. You'll think it's freedom. It isn't. It's inheritance. A low hum rolled across the floor. Not from the lights. From beneath. Something deep. Stirring. Hungry. The other selves raised their heads, in unison, like dogs sensing an earthquake. The center of the room split. The floor cracked down the middle, silent and smooth. And up from the opening rose a door. Old wood. Same spiral carved into it. Same mark from the journal. But this time, it was different. It wasn't waiting to be opened. It was waiting to speak. The lights overhead dimmed, and one by one, the other versions of me turned to face the door. And I knew I was about to meet whatever made the loop. Whatever watched. Chose. Fed. Whatever wore my name before I did. Chapter 22, The Woman's Offer. The door didn't creak when it opened. It simply unfolded, like paper soaked through with memory, splitting outward in total silence, as if sound had been barred from the room out of respect for what was coming through. She stepped into the circle. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. Same dark dress. Same impossible stillness. But her face wasn't wearing human rules anymore. There were too many features. Too many smiles. Too many eyes, some blinking sideways, some vertical, some embedded where no eye had any business being. They flickered in and out, shifting every time I looked directly at her, like I couldn't quite focus on her shape without reality punishing me for trying. The other versions of me, my ghosts, my failures, stood frozen around the perimeter of the light, back straight, eyes glassy. Waiting. Reverent. She stopped just a few feet from me. I wanted to run. I didn't. Because in places like this, running isn't about escape. It's a cue. Run, and you tell the room you're ready to be hunted. You've gone farther than the others, she said. That's why I made the door. Her voice was many voices, each from a different part of me. I recognized one from my childhood. Another that had only ever whispered in dreams. Another that sounded like my own voice, pitched just slightly wrong. You broke the mirror, she said. You made the sacrifice. You bled for memory. You remembered your name even after I tried to smooth it away. She stepped closer. The temperature dropped to the point where I could feel frost biting into my teeth. So now I'll offer you what they all begged for. Her hand reached up. Paler than snow, fingers too long, too elegant. A way out. I didn't speak. No tricks, she added. No riddles. No loops. You walk through the next door, and it will be over. You'll wake up in your bed. You'll remember this as a dream. A strange one. Maybe you'll tell it. Maybe you won't. Her smile returned. It wasn't kind. It was surgical. All I ask, she said, is for someone to take your place. The air around me tightened, like the oxygen was watching how I'd answer. I swallowed hard. Someone? Anyone, she replied. I felt it then, what she was. Not a ghost. Not a demon. She was a gatekeeper. A concept made flesh. A system given teeth. This place, the apartment, the mirrors, the memory, all of it, it wasn't just a trap. It was a balance. A toll booth on a road that wasn't supposed to exist. And she was the one keeping score. You've been through the loop too many times, she whispered. Your soul's stretched thin. I can't feed on you anymore. I can't study you anymore. Another step. But I can use you. She raised her hand again, and a door appeared behind her. Familiar wood. Familiar spiral. But this one was warm. Golden. It looked real. I don't know how, but I could smell sunlight through it. Hear wind. Distant city sounds. Life. Home. Choose someone, she said. Bring them here. Someone who believes you. Someone who trusts you enough to follow. She tilted her head. You don't even have to lie. Just walk them to the door. Let them knock. The place will do the rest. And then I'm free? I asked. Then you're forgotten, she said. The pain will be gone. The knowing. The dreams. You'll remember none of this. You'll sleep again. You'll laugh. You'll be human. She paused. Just one name. One trade. I turned to the circle of selves. They were all staring at me now. Some pleading. Some furious. Some smiling with dark understanding. Because they'd all been here before. And each one had said yes, and walked out. Only to be dragged back when the person they chose failed to survive. It wasn't freedom. It was delay. Debt. Displacement. I looked back at her. She smiled. The door behind her cracked open. And I could smell the world. I could hear it. I could feel it, my life, waiting. The choice was mine. All I had to do was decide who to damn. Chapter 23 The Truth. I didn't answer her. Not right away. The door behind her stayed open, warm light spilling into the circle like a lie painted in golden tones. The kind of light your soul wants to believe in. But it wasn't sunlight. It was bait. I stepped backward, just slightly, just enough to break her gaze. And something inside me began to wake up, not courage, not clarity. Recognition. Because suddenly I understood. This wasn't a haunted apartment. It never was. Ghosts don't shift the geometry of space. Demons don't rewrite memory on paper you haven't touched yet. And no spirit wears your face while asking you to choose who dies. This wasn't a haunting. This was a trap. And not a clever one. A perfect one. Designed not to scare, not to punish, but to measure. To catalog behavior. To test moral elasticity. To see what version of me would break first. What version of you would bargain. And that meant it wasn't just the room. It wasn't even the building. It was intelligent. Aware. What are you? I asked softly. She didn't flinch. But her smile flickered. Just slightly. Like a corner of a mask peeling back. A host, she said. A guide. A threshold. No, I said. You're a mouthpiece. I looked around the circle of cells. I've been fed lies, symbols, loops, over and over. Every time I break a rule, the rules change. Every time I survive, you raise the stakes. You're not looking to punish. You're looking to learn. She didn't move. But the door behind her trembled. Just slightly. I kept going. You want me to make a choice. Not for escape, but to complete the equation. That's what this place is. A lab. A forge. A factory for moral collapse. The woman blinked once. Too slowly. Too deliberately. There's a reason, I said, voice low. Why everything in here mimics memory. Why it smells like places I've lived, sounds like people I've loved. Why it wears their voices. Why it uses me against myself. Because it was built to. The woman, no, the thing inside her, smiled wider now. And for the first time, it spoke without lips. You were always going to find out. The voice echoed everywhere. Not just in the air, in the floor, in the light, in the space between blinks. That was part of your function. You think this is horror. But it's only the seed. I stumbled back. All around me, the other selves were trembling now, some shaking their heads, some mouthing "don't listen" over and over. One had bitten off his tongue. I turned in a slow circle. And I saw it. The walls of the core room had begun to retract. They weren't walls anymore. They were veins. Thin, pulsing layers of translucent flesh stretched over an endless expanse, like the room had always been inside something alive. The black ceiling peeled back, revealing a sky that was not a sky, just endless, looping corridors of fractured geometry, mirrored hallways, infinite doors that led back to the same place. And in the center of all of it, an eye. Not watching from the outside. Watching from the inside. Looking out. You call me an apartment, the voice said. But I am older than walls. I was here before your words. Before your language had shape. I do not haunt. I harvest. Not your soul. Your design. The woman's body trembled, her limbs cracking backward, her frame unraveling like paper soaked in oil. Beneath her skin was light, or what pretended to be light. A fractured halo of shifting angles and impossibilities. You want to wear me, I said, mouth dry. You want to build a better version of you from pieces of me. I already have. You're speaking through him now. A chill ran through me, and I realized, too late, I didn't know which version of me I was anymore. I'd been through too many doors. Too many loops. Too many trades. The memories weren't all mine. Some were theirs. Some had been planted. The Dylan who screamed when the mirror shattered? Was that me? Or was that the last one? How many Dylans had chosen to bring someone back? How many had said yes? How many had refused? And did it matter? Because now, it wasn't offering anymore. The door behind the woman closed with a soft click. "No," the voice said. "You will speak the name." Chapter 24 Exit. I wasn't going to say the name. Not hers. Not mine. Not its. That was the trick. That was always the trick. Give it a name, and you give it a door. And I was done opening doors. I staggered backward toward the center of the circle. The others, my fractured selves, watched in silence. Some pleading. Some shaking their heads. One had sunk to his knees and was praying in a language I didn't know but somehow understood. Above us, the eye in the sky blinked. Once. The sound was indescribable, like a million locks sliding into place. Not to shut something in. To shut the world out. I pulled the journal from inside my coat. Miraculously, it was still there. The pages were soaked, scorched at the corners, stiff from age that wasn't physical. But the symbol, the one I needed, was still visible. Still drawn in that spiral/X combination that had started showing up everywhere once the rules began to unravel. Spiral for descent. X for refusal. It wasn't a sigil of banishment. It was a seal. I dropped to one knee, pulled the silver flask from my boot, the one filled with holy oil, salt water, and one more thing I never tell anyone about. Bone dust. From a monastery that doesn't exist anymore. I'd collected it years ago after a job in Bavaria, where monks had been found weeping blood from eyes that weren't theirs. They'd etched the same symbol on the walls in desperation. I hadn't known why at the time. Now I did. I poured the oil in a circle around me. Drew the symbol in the air, then burned it into the floor with the edge of a lighter. The moment the spiral touched the oil, the fire ignited. Not bright. Not hot. It was cold. Brilliant. A circle of blue-white flames sprang up around me, tall as a man and silent as the grave. The others, my mirror selves, flinched. Some screamed. One laughed until he choked. Two simply disappeared, as if they'd never been real. The thing in the shape of the woman stepped forward. Her skin was sloughing off in sheets now, revealing raw light beneath, light that hurt to look at, not because it was bright, but because it was remembering you. She hissed. "You'll never know if this is the first time or the last." "Doesn't matter," I said. "I'm ending this time." The flame pulsed. The spiral on the ground glowed, deep blue veins spreading outward from it like frost cracking glass. They crawled up the walls, across the floor, through the very air, etching the symbol into reality. "You still don't understand what you are," the voice said, now everywhere, dripping from every surface like water from a corpse. "You think you're a victim. A survivor. But you're nothing more than a tool learning to sharpen itself." My throat tightened. But I stood firm. The symbol finished burning itself into the ground. The circle of fire blazed high. And light exploded from within it. Pure. White. Not holy. Not natural. Just clean. It pushed outward like a blast wave, washing over the other selves, the woman, the door, the eye, everything. They dissolved. No screams. No violence. Just a release, like the whole place had been holding its breath for centuries and finally let go. I felt the floor vanish beneath me. The light consumed me. For a moment I was nowhere. And then, I was on the floor of my apartment. Not apartment 6. My actual apartment. Wood floor. Coffee-stained rug. Pile of old case files on the desk. Dim city light bleeding through half-closed blinds. I lay there in silence. Breathing. Shaking. Alive. And for the first time in a long time. Alone. The watch was still on my wrist. The photo was gone. The journal, nowhere in sight. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. Voicemail. From a number I didn't know. I pressed play. A man's voice. Nervous. Desperate. Hey, Dylan? My name's Carter. My friend just disappeared after moving into an apartment. Unit 6. I know it sounds crazy, but they said you could help. I stared at the phone. Listened to the static. Then, very softly, I whispered, "It's still out there." And I wasn't sure if I'd brought it back with me. Chapter 25. But it's still out there. It's been 2 days since I burned the spiral. 2 days since the cold fire swallowed that place, or whatever that place was pretending to be. I should feel victorious. But I don't. Because when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my own bed. I was outside, lying on a patch of dead grass in front of the Barclay building. The sky was overcast. Traffic hummed in the distance. The world hadn't ended. No apocalypse. No smoking crater. The building stood there as plain as ever. 4 floors. Boarded windows. Same cracked sidewalk. Like nothing had happened. But the door? Gone. Bricked over. Seamless. Like it had never existed. I sat there for a long time, staring at the space where Unit 6 should have been. Where I'd gone in. Where I'd screamed, bled, remembered things I didn't want, and forgot things I needed. Eventually, I stood. No police showed up. No witnesses. No sign of Emily. No sign of me. I walked. Just walked. No destination, no questions. I didn't even check my phone until that night. And when I did, there it was. A single voicemail. Time-stamped for the exact moment I crossed the spiral. I played it once. Then again. Then again. The voice belonged to someone named Carter. Nervous. Breathless. The words were all too familiar. My friend moved into this building and vanished. Unit 6. No one believes me. But I heard about you. You're the guy, right? The one who investigates this kind of thing? Please call me back. I think I heard something in the walls. I didn't call him back. I didn't delete the message either. I just sat there, phone in hand, staring at the last trace of something that was supposed to be over. Because the truth is, I didn't destroy the place. I didn't beat it. I fed it. I passed the test. And now it wants more. Unit 6 isn't a room. It's a concept. It shows up where it's needed. Where someone forgets just long enough to open a door that shouldn't exist. And once it's there, it learns. It rewrites. It waits for the next person who's desperate enough to go looking for answers. I know this because I'm not the first Dylan. Maybe not the last. The spiral wasn't an escape. It was a reset. The next time someone walks through that door, maybe they'll find a version of me waiting. One with darker eyes. One with fewer memories. One who already made the wrong choice and can't remember why. So I write this. Not to warn you. Not anymore. To warn myself. Because when the spiral turns again, and I hear that knock, and the call comes in, I'll go. I always go. That's who I am. Or who they made me. So if you're listening, and your apartment has a door that's not on the blueprint, and your neighbors whisper when they think you're not home, and something inside your walls breathes when you sleep, don't call me. Because it's following me now. And one day, it's going to get tired of waiting.
The story may end here, but the darkness never sleeps. Like this video to keep the shadows stirring. Share your whispers in the comments. Your voice shapes the next nightmare. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Gothic Hour Stories and Mysteries, where every tale lingers and every soul leaves a mark. The Gothic hour awaits.